You're listening to Lead, Sell, Grow the Human Experience podcast. I am your host, Eric Konovalov, and I believe that we can achieve everything we want if we take our leadership, sales ability, and personal growth to a higher level. On this show, we share ideas on how to break through our invisible boundaries, start taking steps towards our dreams, and create the life we desire. I invite you to open your mind to new possibilities, new ideas, and to the truth that everything you want is possible for you. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lead, Sell, Grow the Human Experience podcast. I'm so lucky and grateful that you're here listening in today. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you have not done so yet, get over to the Facebook group, join a conversation in there. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you thought about this episode that we're about to do with the amazing Shea Gerhardt. Now, she's got a great story. She spent nearly 2 decades in executive roles in the mobile gaming and music industries. But today, Shea is the founder of Buderflys with a D, like buds, like earbuds. It's a comfortable earbud that allows growth-minded people to consume content all day and do it in comfort. Shea, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I definitely want to hear about how somebody gets into the earbuds business because, first thing you hear about is you hear earbuds. I'm hearing Sony, Bose, Beats. Apple now has like some Mickey Mouse looking things for $600. But before that, like who was Shea before she became this inventor?
So I was in the music industry for a long time, but a lot of that was in the sort of the entrepreneurial spaces. So but my most recent one was in the EDM, electronic dance music space, which we supported huge number of the biggest DJs in the world. And in that, we had spent a lot of time with headphone companies. I'd done a lot of licensing deals and really got a deep understanding of sound and the importance of sound. And so, we, at the time, earbuds started, really the design of it was invented 14 years ago with the iPod and was meant for 20 minutes of music listening. And the way we're using earbud has changed dramatically since then. And so I had such a cool career, but one day I was going skiing and we had 3 little boys and my husband was like, hey, it's a powder day tomorrow. And I know you're from Florida, but powder days are like heaven here. And he's like, you can go by yourself.
What does that mean, powder days? That means like you're getting some snow or soft snow?
Yeah, you're getting like a huge amount of snow where no one else has skied on it. But you have to get up really early in the morning to do that. So it's called the Front Range, but I'm in the Front Range. So you have to drive up to the mountains. So you have to leave really early because everyone else wants to get up to the mountains too. So I had fallen asleep the night before, but couldn't quite, kept waking up. So I put those wired AirPods on.
I remember those.
And actually ended up falling asleep with them and got up super early and my ears had that aching feeling. And prior to that, I listened to a ton of audiobooks and podcasts. Like the best thing in the world is when you have that 10 minutes or 20 minutes to yourself and you get to listen to your content that you love and like go on walks. But I kept asking friends like, hey, have you listened to this podcast? It's so cool, or this audiobook, whatever. And people are like, no, I can't wear earbuds. They hurt, they ache all the time. So, but that morning I had this issue. So AirPods are made, it's called a clamshell design. It's that plastic clamshell design, and they have essentially a seam around the middle. So I cut them open, split them at the seam, put the components, the speaker and such in my kids' swimmer's wax, and comfortably wore them all day. I wore them underneath my helmet, and the sound environment was so clean. I mean, I'm not recommending you listen to earbuds while skiing because it's not that safe, but it was just such a cool experience. And then, it wasn't perfect. My hair was getting stuck in the wax and stuff, but it was awesome. After having achy ears, it was still more comfortable and got more comfortable over the day. So I came back to, and one of my good friends was CFO at the time. And so I said to him, I was like, hey, listen to what I invented this weekend. And he's like, no, that's got to exist. So we spent a long time looking for it. And then his wife is a patent attorney. She's like one of the top patent attorneys in Colorado. And she was like, oh, let's patent it. And I was like, all right, well, let's make sure there's actually a market here because I have lots of inventions. And we did a ton of research, and it turns out ear fatigue, soreness, and that achy pain you get is the top complaint in the earbud industry. And it's the number one reason why people exit the industry and go to like the big cans or you use only home speakers or whatever. So that's
okay, but
that's where it came.
Oh, I hear you. You're like, yeah, so I just cut them open and split them up. Do you know how many times I've had ear aches from wearing earbuds too long? And I've never had even a thought process to cut anything open and try to explore what's going on in there and how do I make them more comfortable. And I would say that most of people that I deal with, or most of the people I know, maybe I'm in the wrong circles, they don't do that. They don't break their earbud, whatever they were, the AirPods back then with the wires in them. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I always have had this, I always invent things. So, I mean, my earliest one was I invented a summertime, which now is sort of a thing, but summertime Halloween shop. And so I would do parades and then make all my friends dress up in Halloweens in July. And it was Halloween in July. And then they would have to pay me like 50 cents or whatever for a costume. And then we would parade. So all the other kids in the neighborhood would learn about it. Didn't really take off, but that was my first one. I was like 9.
You were 9, okay.
Yeah. And then I had a kitten, and we always had to brush the kitten, and he didn't like it. So I cut a hole in the door to the basement and then put like a brush around it and like made my poor husband has to build the things I create. And so it was like a round door with a brush on it. And so every time he would walk through, he could brush himself.
Oh my gosh, you're right. So how did you grow up with both parents in the household?
My parents split when I was 5. And so my dad moved to Boston, and my mom, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay. With your mom, I'm assuming.
With my mom, yeah. And then I went to high school back east with my dad. So
how were you raised? Like, I'm just curious, from a young age, it sounds like whoever you were raised by was very empowering for you to like try new things and take risks. Or maybe I'm kind of putting my own label on it, but is that what did your parents tell you to do when it was something risky or not popular?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was so supportive and essentially let us come up with anything. She always tells stories that I'd be inventing things until like 11 at night, even if it was a school day, but she just let me do it. I also have dyslexia. And so at the time, people didn't know a ton about what dyslexia was. So I there was an element where people were like, oh, she doesn't get it, but that's not it. It's just, you can't read as fast. I think there's an element to that. And then why I think a lot of entrepreneurs are dyslexic is because there was a lot of rejection when you're younger and you're like, well, I'm just going to find my own way, So I think that's one of the biggest advantage. I mean, they do say that dyslexic people either become CEO or they go to prison. That's the biggest propensity, but wow. It's white collar crime. So.
Okay. Got it. So what's this dyslexia? I thought dyslexia was where you're like, get letters mixed up.
So you get letters mixed up. You think differently than I think the average student, it's the context. And so a lot of dyslexics have really, are in the high IQ, but school isn't necessarily structured for just that aspect of it. It's structured in a different way that doesn't really work with the dyslexic mind. And so, yeah, that's it. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I listen to podcasts and audiobooks so much, is because I can spend this time learning, because I love learning more than anything, right? And love like getting new knowledge or different perspectives. And I can spend as much time as I want doing that. And it's not like I'm just sitting there and like I mean, also I like to do multiple things at once. So I like to hike or whatever. But that's one of the things you do, is you just find ways around it. So like when Audible launched 20 years ago, I'm pretty sure I was their first customer, because it was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
What was the first book you got? Do you remember?
Yes, it was called Waking Up by Russell Baker, which it was like a summer reading from my high school. And my dad read it at the same time, and he's like, this book is phenomenal. But, you know, I was a kid and it was a memoir, and I was like, why do I care about this guy's life? You know, but I feel like she should have started with something like The Story of Led Zeppelin or something. But
Yeah, that probably.
Yeah.
I wonder how big that library was back then. Okay, so you went back and forth between Colorado, some years on the East Coast in Boston, and then where'd you go to college?
So I went to Boulder, CU Boulder. My dad then eventually moved to Vermont. My sister and I had two choices: Vermont, you know, UVM or CU. And so she went to UVM and I went to CU.
That's because it was in-state tuition, or what?
Yeah.
Got it.
But which are good schools, so we were lucky.
And what did your parents do when you were growing up? Like, what was your dad's profession and your mom's?
So my dad is an architect, and he owned a company that built assisted living homes, and then he was also in the Nature Conservancy doing sales, but for, you know, getting huge land grants to protect for the Nature Conservancy. And then my mom was head of housing and human resources for the city of Boulder, which was a huge role. Yeah, and she was a pretty big deal in Boulder. So
wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, you had kind of both sides of, I guess, what am I trying to say here? You saw both sides of it, right? You had the kind of corporate government HR personality in your life, and then you had an entrepreneur who was also in sales in your life, and an engineer, so he tinkered. I mean, that's
right.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm starting to understand why your mind works the way it works.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
No one's ever asked me these questions. Yeah.
Well, I just want to because it's not, to me, it's a certain type of mindset that says, this isn't comfortable, how can I make it better? Instead of, this isn't comfortable, I'm just not going to do this, or I'm going to go find some different ones, right? Or I'm just going to deal with the discomfort. Most people deal with discomfort.
Right. I guess that's right.
Especially because they're free, right? I mean, when you buy an iPhone, they used to give you those things. It was in the box.
Yep.
You took them, you cut them open, and you put them into some wax, and the wax molds to your ear and probably makes it, I'm assuming it makes it soundproof on the outside, right? So now you can't hear anything on the outside, and you just got a really nice sound in your ear.
Yeah. I essentially had the first active noise canceling experience.
Bravo. That is cool. Okay. So tell us about like how it evolved.
Okay. So, I mean, we spent, my CFO and I at the time spent a few months, like 9 months, making sure this was a viable market. Like I said, like I invent things all the time. And we weren't, but business is sort of my other passion. I love businesses, and throughout my career, what I've done is gone into either startups or, sort of mid-sized businesses and found a path to growth, even if it's a crowded marketplace, right? So that's where my expertise is. And when we had done enough research around this, that this was the number one problem. The other issue is the falling out. So the reason that earbuds hurt and have that achy feeling all the time is because the human ear is constantly moving when you talk and exercise and chew. And that experience causes friction with all earbuds in the market. All of them are made with that hard clamshell material design. The wired AirPods are the same as the wireless AirPods. The form factor is exactly the same. And that when your ear is moving, it scoots out the earbud out of your ear. So it's essentially like squeezing it out. And so that's called walkout. So that's one of the reasons they fall out all the time. I mean, it's a good business model for the AirPods of the world
Yeah, it
because
is.
you lose them every 6 months. And I did hear someone told me the other day that there's signs in the New York City subway that says if you drop your AirPod, don't jump into the tracks to grab it.
Oh
Like
my
that's
gosh.
how much people are losing them. And we find them on the floor, on the ground all the time. My social media person calls it the fallen soldiers, because when it's especially in the wintertime, so after the snow melts, you see all these little white dots in the parks because people have lost one. But so we spent a really long time. Oh, so this is a huge market, and 2017 is really the only time there's been a huge change in the industry, in that Bluetooth became stable enough for mass distribution. Since then, people started charging for earbuds, right? So there's been a shift, but the amount of usage is now shifted so much that people are considering this just as important as their phone, and they never leave home without it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we are entering the market at an ideal tipping point in that regard. And so when we start to do deep dive into the industry, people who are heavy earbud users, they use their earbuds while they love music. They're using their earbuds for audiobooks, podcasts, streaming video, talking on the phone. So we've sort of dubbed that the spoken word vertical. And we say, and because of that usage, and people who are heavy earbud users are our target audience. And they're listening to music, but they're listening to it on their home speakers, in the stereo. And so we say we are unapologetically not about music. We are all about the spoken word. And so everything we've done is for that long-term comfort you can have while using it for that experience.
Mm.
And then, it's a $30 billion industry today. They're projecting it to grow 70% year over year, which is pretty incredible. So in the next few years, they're projecting it to be a $152 billion market.
Wow.
Which is awesome. And right now, Apple, has the biggest share, but it's only 34%. So there's a ton of room in the space, and everyone is doing the same. I mean, the current industry solution is that little rubber foam ear tip, which really has done nothing to that complaint of achy soreness.
It still hurts. Yeah.
I think it helps a tiny bit with walkout, but not as, because it will reverse if you have the silicone one.
Are you talking about that little hook that you kind of hook onto the inside of the ear?
Yeah, with that, or the little thing that goes on the end of, it's like a little ear, it's called an ear tip. It goes on the end of your earbud. So yeah, I mean, that's what we went after. And we just, after 6 years of developing it and figuring out a material that would work and could be mass produced and works with the in-ear experience and is comfortable yet durable, it took us a really long time to develop this compound we're using, material compound, and how to work with sound, because sound, it's flexible. So sound also can't flex that much, or how do you work with it that you still get sound when it's flexible? So it took us a while to invent this. But we launched last year, and it's been awesome. And we just got awarded the patent, one of our biggest patents, which is huge. So yeah, it's been good.
What's the patent for? The material, or what is?
No, it's a utility patent for a continually moldable earbud, headphone, or hearable. So it's the flexing aspect of it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow. So how has your life changed since it went on the market last year?
I mean, I don't know. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done, right? Because we've done a lot of testing. Like we did all the testing where we would do dummy advertising buys, testing price point, testing messaging, testing value props, which is the most important hierarchy in regard to the feature sets. And we also tested additional features. So we've been building a software hardware integration. It's a productivity tool. And we've been testing that on the market. So people actually buy it, and then we say it's out of stock, so we return their money. So we knew that there was a huge demand for this. I mean, we saw awesome results early on, But once you actually get it into people's hands and like have feedback from them, it is the coolest feeling. It's like having, sort of like your other babies, right? And I mean, people write us and they're like, where have you been all my life? Like, thank you so much. And we even have, typical, there's normal manufacturing defects, but we've had one where one guy got 2 manufacturing defects, which we have very low rate of manufacturing defects, but he got 2 and wrote us and he was like, I don't care. Will you FedEx me another pair? These are the best things I've ever had. What? How do we not care? If you're really mad at us. But it's been really cool. Yeah.
All right. So where are you making them?
So we make our final production is in the US. Right now we're in the transition. We're transitioning from a really small shop because our demand was so high, which is a good problem to have. But our old shop couldn't manufacture at the levels we wanted. So we're switching to a new manufacturer in Chicago, outside Chicago. And then those guys are awesome. So we can get up to about 50,000 a month with those guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
50,000 units.
Units, yeah.
What's the price point?
So the price point is $329.
Okay.
And we have a cool cable system that also comes with it. So because we're going after this market of people who are heavy earbud users, we not only have this sort of comfort experience, but we also have a wireless tether. So the wireless tether allows for 9.5 hours of full usage battery use versus like TWS or True Wireless, where you have to put away in your charger. It's so cool technology, but you have to put it away. You have to stop using it until it charges again after about 2 hours of full usage or less. And so that's one of the reasons we did that. The other thing is that, and then we had 33 hours of idle, but we also have a wired cable. So we really have a high-end wired cable. We have a really high-end speaker system because we wanted to bring high-end earbud sound to the mid price point range. So the mid price point range is this $250 to $450 range. And so we have a really high-end speaker that allows for all the nuance of sound, right? So everyone else in our price point range is using what's called a dynamic driver mostly, and it overproduces one end or the other. And generally, based on the Apple model, they're overproducing the bass levels. It's a little bit tricky to do that just because this price point range, these people aren't used to the sound profiles and hearing all the nuance to the sound curve. But once you start to hear it, it's really cool. I mean, like one example I tell is some of our software engineers are in India. They speak English, but the cadence of their accent is so much different than the cadence of my accent that it takes my brain a second to like sort of catch up on hearing the words they're saying, right? But when you have our earbuds in, I mean, it's so much cleaner because I'm also not fighting with, oh, did he sigh there? Did he pause? That kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really cool sound too.
So 3 years ago, did you think that you would know this much about earbuds?
No.
I think you're like the Bubba Gump of earbuds right now. I've never.
Just go down a rabbit hole. So you guys want to know more about the engineering?
Yeah, nope. But it's super duper interesting because I've had problems with earbuds. I ride a motorcycle and maybe this isn't safe, but I like to listen to music when I'm on a motorcycle. And the Apple ones with the air, you can't hear it on my bike. Got a Harley, it's loud, the wind, can't hear them. So then I got another pair. I could hear them, they hurt my ears. Then I got a pair of Shores, but they were way more expensive than the $300 price point, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm digging what you're saying. I'm gonna have to check them out. Sounds like really cool technology, and I geek out on that stuff.
Yeah, it is cool. And first, I love that you ride a Harley. That's so cool. But we just had a guy buy 3 pairs for him and his brother and his dad. They were going on a motorcycle trip for 3 days. And I was like, okay, you can return them because we have a 90-day return policy. And he rode for 3 days with them under his ears. And all 3 of them were like, these are the best earbuds we've ever had. And then they bought 6 more for their family. Like, I thought that was
Wow.
just awesome, right? Like, such a good, like, and that's the thing we have, like, right now we're having 14% repeat purchase when we just started marketing in November.
Good for
Um,
you.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you, all right, going back to the business side of it. You said that you really wanted to test the concept out, right?
hmm
How did you know that, how did you know to move forward with it? What were the stats that you were looking at that you're like, okay, this is good?
So I was actually pretty serious about this. I mean, one of the books I found invaluable was Bill Ayette's Disciplined Entrepreneurship. It's a really good book. It's mostly for tech, but it's like a step-by-step process on validating whether or not this is a substantial idea. So one of the things that was really important to us is like, is the market big enough? Has it been stale long enough, right? And so our space, really nothing has changed. Everyone pretty much has the same stuff. I mean, there's some pretty, I mean, it's cool technology. It's just not, there's not a lot of differentiation across the space. And the earbud shape has been the same since the beginning, right? The ear tip is the only adjustment, but it's not really changing things. So we knew there was huge demand. We knew it was a huge market, but it was fragmented in that there wasn't a dominant player that was over 50% of the market. And that this has a potential, and everyone in the earbud space. I mean, that's the other thing when you're thinking about entering a market, you think about, like, you can't just come in and say we're the best for everyone, right? Everyone knows that you can't be the best thing for everything. You always have to have, when you're entering a market, define what you're going after and really own that small space. I mean, our space is still pretty big, but no one in the space is talking about earbud podcasts and audiobooks and spoken word. And everyone, I mean, music is super sexy, but we say we're sort of flipping it on its head, and we're making that growth mindset, the curious mind. And so we say, like, the Malcolm Gladwells of the world are our sexy ambassadors, right? Versus like the music artists and so forth. So and so really honing in on that experience, which, I mean, you're a podcaster and you probably listen to a lot of podcasts, you know, that experience when you have, and you just get to like go on a hike or go on a walk or even do the dishes, and listen to your content, and whether it's like something that's making you laugh or something that's making you like super intrigued or whatever it is, that those moments are so cool. So we knew we had a way to get into the market that is different than anything else. And a different approach. So those are the things that were really important to me. I mean, you know, there's an element of hardware that the cash flow is different than like a software business, which can be a little bit tricky as a startup. And I also think, you know, you have to be a little bit crazy to go up against the big guys, the big brands in the space. But we know I mean, particularly in America, this is pretty much every category is open because we have such an entrepreneurial mindset in this country. Like, as long as you can address a market that needs a change, that knows, and that you can find an emotional attachment to that, I think pretty much anything is possible.
Wow. I just, there's so much I love about what you're saying. And the biggest thing is, there are people right now who have ideas, who've had ideas. It comes and goes. They've had the same idea for 10, 15 years, and they won't take any action on it. And if I even take your story, it probably was so easy to just say, well, that's a crazy idea. What the hell do I know about creating earbuds or making earbuds better, or patents or manufacturing or marketing or selling it? Yet you did.
Yeah.
That's the piece I'm interested in. Like, that's a certain type of mindset where it's like, unless you've done so much research that you knew that this wasn't going to fail no matter what, you had your whole plan laid out for you. But I got this picture right behind me, and I don't know, you probably can't see the words, but that's a famous philosopher. His name is Mike Tyson. And the quote is that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so
Yeah.
I know prior service military, I know that no matter what plan you have, that plan is not going to work after step one.
Yeah. Yes. And that's true. Like, that's funny because I grew up Buddhist and that well, my parents are Buddhists, like most kids, I rejected it. There is an element where you can do the most planning in all the world and it will never follow that path, right?
Right.
Um, and and like, I want to be clear, like, I do sort of think growing a startup is like going from one setback to another with enthusiasm. Because a lot of times you're like, okay, that didn't work. So now we're trying something else, right? So, and it's so damn hard. That's the one thing I would say. Like, anyway, I have a bunch of ideas for businesses. You guys can write me and I'll send you ideas if you want to do it. But know that it's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done. Like the mental, physical challenge that you go through, and physical, I just say, because like probably not as healthy as I should be right now, right? Is like nothing I've ever experienced. And it's really intense. And I try to take it, like, here's set out our plan, here's our goal, here's our next step. And if we make it to that next step, then I'm like, okay, we made it, like we're going to keep going. And I can't get trapped in, oh my God, if we don't get this, it's going to crush us, because that would be everything, right?
Yeah.
So there is an element. I mean, it is intense, and it's been, I'm lucky because I have the most incredible husband in the world, and we have kids that are, now in 10 and between 10 and 12, and they can sort of manage themselves better now. And but if I didn't have that support system, that's the other thing, you need an awesome support system. I mean, there's days where I have to, like, on Friday, I'm like, I'm quitting, this is the end. And my husband will be like, cool, okay, great. And like, we'll go to the grocery store and stuff, and he'll be like, so she just quit her job and we just want to celebrate a little bit, we're gonna get some donuts today. And then on Sunday,
I love that.
So you think you'll go back to school? I mean, go back to work on Monday? And I was like, yeah.
What does your husband do?
He works for actually a really cool company called Bruca. I'd say they do insulated paneling. So it's a building envelope system that is very green, and very and it can be LEED certified. So it's a really cool product. And
Huge.
He runs the US company here.
Wow, good for him. So what's your why? Like, how do you continue to go from setback to setback with enthusiasm? Like, what's the one thing that kind of you're like, no, I can't give up on this?
I mean, I don't know. I have 3 little boys, and I think it would be really cool for them to see a woman be very successful in the business space. My mom was really successful, but she was in civil service space, right? And so she was a great lead for me, but I also think that's important. I think, I have such a curious mind, and I think people who are entrepreneurial minded, they don't, they struggle with any job they have if they're not making things happen, and growing things. And so I get up, there are plenty of days where I check myself. I'm like, if I could do anything in the world, what would I be doing right now? Like lying on the beach. Sometimes I think running a taco truck in Mexico would be awesome, but there's not enough diversity in that experience, right? And so, I mean, I consider everything like, and when I started this, when I finally decided to start the business, and I had luckily, like, had some investors interested in it, I sat my husband down. And so I had the Buderflys business plan. And then the other thing I wanted to do I wanted to go back and get my PhD in economics, because the research side of economics is the most interesting thing in the world to me. And I sort of laid out both plans to him, and he was like, listen, we're paying for your last graduate school. Let's do this instead. And you've always wanted to run your own businesses. You've been running them for other people and growing other people's businesses. Now you should do your own, right? Which was awesome, but it turned out like he really shot himself in the foot, because this costs way more. So,
That's
um, and the funny thing is like right now is the most interesting, crazy, like no historical context, economic situation in the world. And this would be so interesting to study and research versus what I'm doing is that I am in the thick of supply chain and the thick of the great resignation, all this stuff that has never happened really before.
yeah.
So, but it's probably the best way to learn it.
You're seeing it from a different probably point of view where you can't find good employees to do anything if you're like most other companies.
Yeah.
How was your very first investor meeting?
Well, so I am horrible, and it's so cliche, but I'm horrible at pitching. Because it's 5 minutes, it's time, there's all this pressure, you can't like ad lib, you have to memorize every word or you don't get it all in.
How did you get in there? Like was it like a Shark Tank type of scenario or what happened?
No, I mean, Denver has or I guess all of Colorado has a really cool entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I had gone to this like pitch academy, they called it, and it was like a 4-day program to learn how to pitch to investors. And by the end of it, there was a few investors in the room that were helping, they were mentoring the pitches. And one of them was like, "You are horrible at pitching, but we are interested in investing." So I'm like, okay. So anyone who else is bad at pitching, just know it's still possible. Like to the point where like I pitched for a huge competition at Denver Startup Week is the biggest startup week in the country. And I pitched there and it was like 15,000 people. And at the end of it, that same investor was like, "Jesus, you are so bad." But I came in second. So
Because the product is so good.
the business is a good business model. Yeah.
Does he give you feedback? Like what's bad about your pitch?
Oh, I clutch. My husband says it's like, he's like, "Don't worry," because it's like you melt down in 5 minutes. You melt down 8 times or 7 times, but you come back 8 times. No one usually can even come back once. Like that's his positive feedback. I'm like, I don't know, that's a good thing.
What does the meltdown look like?
Oh, I forget the words. I
So do you
stumble.
just stop? So are you there like
reading.
doing stuff like that or?
I know you probably YouTube it. How bad I am. I get like that. My throat closes up. It feels like my chest is closing. I forget words, and so I repeat the same words. I repeat lines. I try to pull it out, but you can tell I'm stalling, clutching up.
Yeah. Well, but yet you're still coming in really good place and you continue to do it.
And so I have to actually do a pitch next week. And I get like, when I think about it, like I still get that like throat closure. I need like, I don't know. I've tried coaching. I've tried everything. It doesn't work. But as long as I can get the business model out, here's the biggest thing. And this is why I get the most excited about Buderflys is there from the beginning, it has been sort of our contention that the earbud will overtake the brick form factor of this current cell phone, right? So this form factor will be an earbud in the future. And there's been a bunch of industry research that has come out that says, yes, they now think the earbud, which I will say my team and I predicted it, but the earbud will replace the cell phone in the near future, more so because the adoption of the glasses has just not happened. It's too distracting for people. The technology isn't quite there yet. And the proximity to the mouth, because voice assistants will be such a big game in that. So you can email anything, you can do anything with voice assistants, schedule calendars, order things with voice assistants. There'll be sometimes where you can't do Excel really on your thing, so you may still carry on the computer, but that can't happen. Those industry projections can't happen unless you have a comfortable earbud. So our market entry point is solving for today's problems. But on top of that, for 2 years now, we've been building a SaaS platform that's on the earbud. So a productivity SaaS platform. The first iteration of it is what we call ritual, which is, so an example is you're riding your bike, you're listening to a podcast and you hear a cool quote or an interesting fact that, and what's happening right now is people who are into this will stop their bike, pause their phone, rewind, write it down, rewind, write it down, rewind, play, write it down, right? What you'll be able to do with Buderflys is that you'll be able to tap or trigger it, voice assistance, however you want. We will record the last 20 seconds or whatever interval and the next 20 seconds of your content that you're listening to, translate that to text. You can add a tag. So this is good for my Genghis Khan article, whatever you're writing. We'll translate it to text, add the metadata. So who the podcaster is, what platform they were listening to. So that will always show up on this content, no matter where you send it or share it or place it. And then watermark at Buderflys. Obviously, there's an element that to grow this business, we want people to know about it. So Buderflys, a lot of it will be sharing, like, hey, to my sister, here's a cool quote I think you'll love, or to one of my investors, like, here's something, an industry stat that I thought you'd find super interesting, right? And then we will save it to your profile, your Buderflys profile, which will both be an app and on the computer, but you can then organize it any way you want. The other thing we're doing is for Zoom calls, let's say, there's a ton of programs out right now that are recording the whole Zoom call and then translate it to text. They say they're using AI to pull out what's important, but it's not there yet. That technology is not there yet. So what you'll be able to do with us is on the go, either on your walking meeting or at your computer or in the car, you can tap what is important to recap, right? So, and then we'll go back because we'll be translating it. So go back, save that. And then you're sending recaps is going to be super easy, right? So that's what we're launching on the next earbud.
Hold on, you can tap that even if it's not being recorded?
No, we are recording it. We're recording Zoom calls.
So you'd have to be the person recording the Zoom call.
The
You'd
earbud,
have to be.
yeah.
Okay, but if I'm just let's say it's a webinar via Zoom, and I'm on a webinar and the host says something that's really cool and I want to capture that, unless I'm the host, I can't do it. Or will I be able to do it?
Yeah, we're recording the sound that's coming through your earbud.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's really, really cool. So even a live call that's not being recorded, that you're not going to get access to, you can just double tap and you'll have that 40 seconds of content. And
what is not effective is delivering the entire transcript, right? You can get that but no one's going back and then reading the whole transcript, right? They just had the 45-minute call with it. Why do they want to read it again? That's spelled wrong and has the wrong person's name pronounced wrong or spelled, so that's why you're just picking the snippets of what was important to you. And I love it. Yeah, it's really
well, because I write content all the time about sales, leadership, and I actually categorize it. So I have some for sales, for leadership, mindset, coaching. And if I hear an Audible book, I literally have pulled over, taken out my notes, wrote down where it's from, what chapter, what time I'm listening to it, and then had to remember the quote and rewind it. Oh, what did it say? Okay. Yeah. I do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be awesome. And we did a ton of research around people's use case around this and how they do it. And, we sort of say it's like the best of Evernote, Otter, which is like recording Zoom calls, and Kindle, in that, you just have this experience, but it's on the go too. You're not tied to your computer or whatever. So, we're really excited about that. And we've been working on it for a long time.
Bravo, Shea. That is awesome. What a brilliant idea. When is that coming out?
So right now that's scheduled to come out June 2023.
Okay. And what are you looking for investors for? Like, one, how much are you trying to raise? And two, where's that money going?
So we are looking for a $7 to $10 million round, which is essentially our seed. We could call it early A. But we only raised a small amount. consumer electronic companies are raising, 25 to 30 million pre-revenue. We were very deliberate about how we went about this because we really wanted to make sure, is this a viable product? Can we solve this number one complaint? Can we delight customers? And can we break through the clutter, right? There's a lot of noise out there around the headphone space. And can we reach people and get their attention? And that is what we have worked really hard, but found this perfect triangle. I mean, not perfect, there's going to be growth from that, but this really nice experience where on a small scale, we know we can grow to the point where we're selling out of every inventory run we get in. We raised the price point $100 because we needed to slow demand, and it actually increased demand, which is crazy experience. In consumer electronic, people don't raise the price point, right?
Right.
And so we know that the market's there. So the next round is really to sort of add jet fuel to that. And we are not in every market in the US. But really, like, then we'll go into Amazon, like low-hanging fruits, spread to the rest of the US, go outside the US to key markets. So that's low-hanging fruit, but really making people aware of it is what it takes. And that's the next step, which will be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that I get a chance to help you raise awareness for this product. It sounds really amazing. What do you believe in?
I believe in love. Is that so geeky?
Yeah, very. That's too cheesy.
It is so
Give me
cheesy.
something different.
What do I believe
I
in?
believe in love. All right, well, let's play with that. What do you mean by I believe in love? What does that mean?
I just feel like I have such a great love of learning. I have a great, family and support system. And I am so proud. I'm going to say I'm proud of myself that I just am willing to take chances on anything I try. And we're going to fail a bunch of times, and I'm going to do everything I can to learn from that. And that's part of the process, is this journey of going through it. And starting your own business it's the best MBA you could ever have, right? But it's also a huge, mental challenge. And I just am lucky that I have such an incredible team of people, and they're so smart and know way more in their respective fields than I do. And it's awesome to have this all come together, I guess. But it's erase the love part.
No, we're not erasing the love part, because now once you explained it, I actually love that answer. So I got an idea for your butterflies. May I?
Yeah, please. Oh, please.
Install it like a translator into it.
What? Oh, you mean a language translator?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have that. So right now you just use voice assistants. I mean, we have that. You just use a voice and say Google Translate.
But it's very, yes, but you have to pick language. Half the time I click on the wrong thing, whether it's Google Translator, whether it's something else.
I like that a lot, because
I don't know.
Cool that to me, and I saw this once at the UN. They have some capability. It's like big can headphones where everyone can hear in their language. I just think that's just a game changer. If you can walk into any room in any country and have a conversation with them, imagine how much you could learn and know and grow. And that's
and if it's maybe there's an app on your phone that you speak it, so you set a setting that says it'll translate from whatever language. So if I was in Paris a month ago maybe with my wife, and I don't speak any French. Like, you can put me in Spain and I'll get around just fine. And thank God the French people were so accommodating, and they were nice, and they spoke English way more than I thought they would. But when, it'd be cool to just walk in, they say something, I hear it in English, even though they said it in French. I say it in English into my Buderflys, and it just types up exactly what I'm saying on my phone, so I could show them the screen in French.
Right. Yeah.
Right? That would be really cool.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. Also something with toilet paper, because that's been static. It's mass adoption. Like, I actually think 100% of people use it. Maybe we could put some music into the toilet paper. I don't know what we're doing here, but
how do we make sustainably sourced toilet
Reusable toilet paper.
paper?
That's disgusting, Shay. We're not talking about that on the show. All right, Shay, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think you asked awesome questions. I mean, anything that you know if your listeners are into that they should know more about? Sorry to turn it on you, but
No, I honestly think that if I could tell you, if I'm like, here are the points that I really want you guys to focus on after meeting Shay today, is how she handles setbacks, failures, and continues to move forward. There's a chance that I'm guessing you didn't know every single step of the way and everything you're going to need to do and every person you need to meet before you started this venture.
yeah.
Yet you just did it.
Yeah, and I did it. And that's the thing, like it's scary. And I will say, here's a story that I could be seen as a stalker for, but we had Telluride, Colorado is probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. And we luckily have investors who are in Telluride, and we were up there doing a pitch. And I had gone out to dinner with some locals who were just like nice enough, like, come out, meet us, And I was sitting next to this woman who was a residential architect. She's the top residential architect in Telluride, which is a big deal in Telluride. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, we're here for investment in this funding pitch competition for 10 days. And I have this earbud company. We really focus on the spoken word, like audiobooks and podcasts, and people who love that experience. And she's like, oh, do you know this guy? We're under NDA, so I won't say it out loud, but essentially he has one of the biggest brands in this space and most loyal customers, tens of millions of most loyal customers. So he's big deal in the space. And he was like, she's like, do you know him? And I was like, yeah, I mean, they're in, the East Coast. And she's like, oh, he has a house here. I built it for him. And I want, like in my head, I'm like, all right, where's the house? I picture myself like popping out of the bush, like, hey, just walking by, and she told me it was on the mountain. So in Telluride, it's a tiny little valley. So you, if you're on the mountain, you just take the gondola down, you don't drive into town. And so I spent the next 4 days just riding the gondola because it's the most beautiful views you could ever imagine. But I knew there was a chance that he would get on this gondola. And so I was practicing for my pitch. I was writing a bunch of like business stuff. And so I had my whole computer set up and like people would get on, and I knew it was an 18-minute ride, but there was one stop in between. People were like, what are you doing? It looks like you're working. I'm like, yeah, this is my office today. I'm like, but you got 5 minutes and I could practice my pitch on him. So those poor people, sorry if you're out there. But anyway, I never ended up meeting him. I mean, even like one of my other investors who was from Denver, I was like, hey, if you see this guy, text me. And he's like, oh, Shay, I don't know if I want to be part of this. I'm like, just text me and I'll come running. And so we had the pitch. I never met him. And then afterwards we were at a meet and greet, like cocktail hour with the investors. And someone came up to me and was like, oh, this guy is at the back of the bar. And he wasn't part of this group. And so I was like, okay, all right. And so I went back there, and essentially this guy is like he's been my mentor because he's a writer and like just started this awesome company. And so I went back there and I was like, hey, you don't know me, but you're essentially my mentor. And I started my company to give your customers a better experience. He's like, okay, essentially like, what you peddling, And so I gave him an overview of it. And I just thought it was like, okay, cool. I got to meet this guy right at the time. Like wasn't thinking much of it. And then he started vetting us. It turns out I got to meet with the big brand. He's an investor now. But that's the kind of stuff, like, it was really scary for me to talk to him. But I was like, what a cool experience that I get to be able to, meet this guy who I've really looked up to.
I got goosebumps.
Oh,
I got goosebumps because I believe, like, that's the law of attraction at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you took steps to it, right? First, you wanted to meet this guy. You knew you were going to meet him. You sat on this gondola for 4 days with the hopes to meet him. And you met him just randomly. He's at a bar where you're
Yeah.
at, just random. It's not random.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it worked.
No, I
So,
know it's
yeah,
not
well,
random. There's
yeah,
universal laws that rule our life.
yeah, I agree. I
It's
agree.
so interesting, Shea. Wow. Wow. That's the coolest story ever. That may be one of the coolest stories we've had on our show. We had some really cool stories.
I should have led with that.
How can people learn more about the Buderflys and learn more about you and connect with you? Where are you at?
Because we've had such awesome demand, we're only at buderflys.com. So it's 1D, no T's. So like earbud, buderflys.com. But we are looking to get, once we have this new production run, a new manufacturer up and running, we'll be on Amazon and all the big guys. So
That's so
yeah,
cool.
check it out.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We
And-
also do a cool thing that has just organically happened, but on a weekly basis, we recommend podcasts and audiobooks because right now there's a discovery problem. It's really hard to find people, find good podcasts and stuff, which we'll be recommending you guys. But and it's just taken off. Like it's almost like it's its own company. We don't mean to, but people are like, oh, I'm super into this. Like it's once a week you get an SMS or whatever you want. And then we give you 2 or 3 recommendations that our team has come up with. And now we have 20% of our users giving us recommendations back, which is really cool.
Out of here.
Yeah, so check that out. Even if you don't want to buy a pair of earbuds, you guys.
I do want to buy a pair of earbuds because I'm going to be on them on my Harley. And here in Florida, we don't have, there's no helmet laws. And so it's even better to ride without a helmet and have something, that's not windy in your ear and you can listen to music.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty cool.
About that, yeah.
Shea, thank you so much for being here. What an honor it was to talk to you. I can't wait to see all the success you're going to have. And I'm telling you, I'll be buying your headphone or earbuds, I guess. I don't want to call them earbuds because I feel like others, I'm just going to say Buderflys.
Okay.
I'm going to be buying your Buderflys for people for holiday gifts in the years to come. I can guarantee it.
That's awesome. Oh, Eric, it was awesome meeting you. Asked awesome questions. And I actually love your podcast. So
thank you so much.
Cool to be among greatness.
Ditto. I mean, I'm honored. Thank you, Shea.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everybody. And as you're going down to check out the website for Shea's in our show for Buderflys in our show notes, be sure to check on that 5-star review and tell us how you felt about this podcast because Shea is awesome and we appreciate you being here. Bye, everybody.